Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This one is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
It's
it is a fascinating topic.
it's Lolita, but
Yes,
through a new lens that one of you lovely listeners sent to us.
absolutely. And this is a text that just keeps on giving.
Oh yeah, it's so
There's
controversial.
so many different angles to explore, and this one is really fascinating.
Yeah, and I love it because, we always say we like to go deep.
That's right.
And this one's really going deep because it's looking at Lolita's character through the Enneagram,
Yes,
specifically as a self-preservation type 2.
that's right.
So for anyone who needs like a little refresher, the novel Lolita is about Humbert. Humbert, he's a middle-aged man who becomes like totally obsessed with Dolores Hayes,
Yeah,
who's nicknamed Lolita, and she's 12.
12 years old.
Yeah,
Very controversial.
very controversial.
Yeah.
So just getting that out there.
Yeah,
But
putting that out there.
the thing that I think is so interesting about this particular analysis is that it tries to move beyond those simple labels that we often put on Lolita,
Exactly.
victim or temptress, right?
She's one or the other.
Exactly.
But it's like, well, can we look at the complexity of her character with
Yeah.
a bit more nuance? And I think the Enneagram can help us do that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so smart because the Enneagram is a personality framework
Yes, it is.
that can help uncover like hidden depths and motivations, right?
Absolutely.
So I guess to even begin with this, we need to kind of understand what is a self-preservation type 2
Yeah.
and how does that differ from how we typically think of type 2s?
Yeah. Well, I think with a type 2 in general, we think of, the need to be loved,
Right.
the need to be needed, to be helpful, to kind of
Caretaker.
caretaker, yeah, all of that.
Right.
But the self-preservation 2 subtype
Right.
is a little bit different because it's not so much about that outward seeking of validation or affection.
Okay.
It's more about ensuring their own survival and
Okay.
their own security. So there's a really deep-seated fear there
Okay.
of being alone and vulnerable.
Oh.
So they become very adept at making themselves indispensable to others.
Oh, so instead of like outwardly demanding that attention, they're kind of creating a situation where other people are like, oh my gosh, I need to take care of you.
Exactly.
You need me.
Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Okay.
It's about creating dependence to guarantee that their needs are met.
Wow. That is a really interesting distinction. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's subtle.
Okay.
It's really subtle.
So how do we apply this to Lolita, though?
Right.
I mean, she's a child
Yeah,
in a horrific situation.
absolutely.
I mean, can we even talk about like manipulation or strategy,
It's a great question.
in that context?
And that's what makes this analysis so thought-provoking.
Oh, yeah.
Because what the author is saying is that Lolita's difficult childhood, so marked by her mother's death,
Oh, right.
a lack of stability, right,
Right.
likely intensified her need for security. So she may have just unconsciously gravitated towards anyone who could offer that.
Wow.
And that, unfortunately, was Humbert.
So her quote unquote seductive behavior,
Yeah.
and like that's what everyone focuses on, right?
Exactly.
Like, is that intentional?
Right.
Is she manipulating or is she
Yeah.
subconsciously trying to survive?
I think that's one of the interpretations this lens offers.
Okay.
It suggests that those actions, particularly those that seem flirtatious or aimed at, like, evoking jealousy
Right.
in Humbert,
Yes.
could be seen as her trying to secure his protection, his provision
To survive.
to survive. Exactly.
But I mean, wouldn't that be incredibly difficult for a child to like consciously do?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
And that's where I think the concept of what we call affiliative manipulation comes in.
okay.
It's not about consciously scheming or being intentionally malicious.
Yeah.
It's more that they've learned, the self-preservation too might have learned subconsciously
Right.
to tap into vulnerability and need as a way to get those needs met.
Oh, so like a child who acts helpless to get attention.
Precisely.
Okay.
They learn by appearing vulnerable.
Yeah.
They can elicit that care and support.
Oh my gosh. That
And others.
that is giving me like a whole new way to think about all those moments where
Yeah.
she's like playing with his emotions.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and it's still incredibly disturbing
Of course.
given like the whole power dynamic.
Yes.
But it just adds a whole other layer to understanding her character.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if that behavior, even if it's ultimately about survival,
Yeah.
might actually feed into Humbert's obsession, right? And create this twisted feedback loop.
Ugh, that's disturbing, but it makes sense.
It is disturbing, but it does make sense.
Yeah, and like this analysis isn't trying to excuse Humber,
No, not at all.
but it just makes you think about how their needs and vulnerabilities might like tragically play off of each other.
Right, and how they kind of feed into this unhealthy dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think this idea of Lolita's need for security also connects to another aspect that we see in the novel, and that's her materialism,
Yeah.
right? All the gifts, all things sparkly.
Yeah, like that's one of the things that I think a lot of people remember from the book
Right.
is just her obsession with like material things.
Exactly. It's often seen as greed or superficiality,
Right.
especially at that age.
Yeah, yeah. She's a kid.
But through this lens of the self-preservation,
Yeah.
too,
Okay.
it takes on a whole new meaning
I like that.
because for the subtype,
Okay.
material possessions represent security.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So it's not like she actually cares about all that stuff. It's just like
It's not the object itself.
or representation.
It's what it symbolizes to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stability,
It's valued
being cared for, that she won't be abandoned.
and not left alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that ties right back to that core fear of the self-preservation, too.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting because it's making me think about her agency,
Right.
you
right.
know?
Right.
Because, yeah, she is a victim. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
But we also see her making choices,
Right.
like manipulating situations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like she's even enjoying toying with Humbert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, can we reconcile those two things?
I think so. And that's where I think this lens becomes so illuminating
Yeah.
because it suggests that even within these horrific circumstances,
Yeah.
she's trapped in
Right.
trumpet.
Lolita is actually exhibiting a level of strategic thinking
Okay.
and agency.
So she's not just reacting to what he's doing, but she's actually like
She's not just a passive recipient.
trying to work the situation
Right.
a little bit to her advantage.
Exactly. And the author points to some instances in the novel where we really see this.
Yeah, what kind of instances?
Well, think about the times where Lolita feigns innocence
Okay.
or plays up that vulnerability.
On the surface, it seems like she's being submissive,
Yeah.
but actually she's disarming Humbert. She's keeping him off balance
Okay.
and ultimately ensuring that he's going to continue to provide for her.
Oh my gosh, she's smart.
Right?
Like she's playing this game.
She's playing the game.
Yeah. And it's like to survive.
To survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another example is her ability to evoke jealousy in him.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like by hinting at other boys.
Exactly.
Or flirting with strangers.
It's like, look, I'm not completely under your control.
Yeah. Like I have other options.
Yeah. And it's just this subtle but powerful way for her to assert her presence
Yeah.
and remind him that he needs to work to keep her.
I love that, like, he needs to work to keep her. That's such a good point.
It really makes you think about the power dynamics
Yeah.
on a whole other level.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's important to emphasize that this analysis is not in any way trying to diminish
Right.
her victimhood.
She is a victim.
She absolutely is.
But it just adds another layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like holding up a mirror to that complexity that's
Yeah.
often overlooked.
Because I think we do that a lot in general.
We do.
You know, especially with female characters, we kind of try to put them in a box.
Absolutely.
You're either the innocent victim or you're the,
The temptress.
yeah.
The manipulator.
The manipulator. And it's like,
But life isn't that simple.
no, it's not.
And characters aren't either.
Right.
And I think especially for a character like Lolita, seeing her through this psychological lens
Yeah.
allows us to really recognize her as this complex individual
Yeah.
with her own motivations,
Mhm.
her own fears, her own survival strategies.
She's a human.
She is.
Yeah.
And it humanizes her in a way
Yes,
that I think other interpretations don't.
it definitely does.
And it also makes us consider how trauma can shape a person's behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you could see that, even if those actions seem manipulative
Right.
or calculating, it's like she's doing this to survive.
Mm-hmm. She's doing it to survive. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really important point.
Okay, so we've been like really deep in the literary analysis here.
Yeah, we have.
But I remember you saying earlier that this can help us understand people in real life.
Oh, absolutely.
So what did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, while they're not real-life Lolitas, obviously,
Right.
in that exact sense,
Right.
there are people who exhibit similar self-preservation to tendencies.
Oh, okay.
Right? And they may have learned to navigate difficult circumstances by becoming indispensable to others, by anticipating needs, by
Right.
subtly influencing situations to ensure their own well-being.
Oh, this makes me think of someone
Or-
I know, and like
Interesting.
how their actions, sometimes they can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe they're doing this because They have this deep need for security.
Exactly. And I think that's a great example of how literature can help
Yes.
us better understand
The real world.
the complexities of human behavior in
Right.
the real world, right?
Yes.
So we can explore these dynamics
Right.
in a safe space through
Okay.
fictional characters,
Right.
and then hopefully gain these insights that we can then apply
They are online.
to our own lives and relationships.
It's like literature's a mirror,
It is.
but sometimes it's an uncomfortable reflection.
It can be,
Yeah.
but I think those are often the most important ones.
Right, right.
And I think in the case of Lolita, it challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths
Yeah.
about power,
About power.
vulnerability.
And the ways in which we all strive to survive.
Yes, whether consciously or unconsciously.
Exactly.
So after this deep dive
Yeah.
into Lolita as this self-preservation type 2,
Yeah.
how do you think this analysis changes, like, our understanding of her?
It really invites us to see her actions,
Yeah.
not just as a result of Humbert's manipulation,
Okay.
but also as a consequence of her own internal world, you know?
Mhm. Her fears,
Yeah.
her trauma,
Yeah.
and those survival instincts.
I have to admit,
Yeah.
going into this, I was like,
Yeah.
this is a very controversial topic.
It is.
This is a very difficult book.
It is.
But now, having this conversation,
Yeah.
I have to say, I feel a lot more empathy for her character,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
Of course, she's still a victim,
Of course.
but I also see, like, a strength,
Yes.
a resilience
Resilient.
that I don't think I fully grasped before.
That's the power of this type of analysis, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't erase the tragedy of her situation,
Right.
but it allows us to see these glimmers of agency,
Yeah.
even within that darkness.
It's like she's fighting back,
Yeah.
but in this, like, really subtle,
Yeah.
maybe even manipulative way.
Yeah, but what choice does she have, right?
Right.
I
As
mean,
a kid.
she's a kid, she's trapped.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes her character so fascinating,
Right.
even all these years later.
Yeah.
People are still talking about Lolita
Yeah.
and writing about Lolita.
Yeah, and I think it's because she just, like, defies simple categorization.
Exactly.
Like, she is a victim, yes,
yes.
but she's also a survivor,
She is.
a strategist.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately just, like, a deeply human character
Yes.
who forces us to, like, confront these really uncomfortable truths
Yes.
about ourselves and the world we live in.
Well said.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have so much more to think about.
Yeah.
And I understand Lolita better.
Yeah.
And maybe even, like, human nature a little bit better.
And that's what we're here for, right?
Right.
On the deep dive.
To encourage curiosity.
Yeah.
To challenge assumptions.
Absolutely.
And to inspire, like, deeper thinking.
Deeper thinking about ourselves, about the world.
Yes, exactly.
About literature.
So for our listeners who, are now super intrigued by the Enneagram,
Yeah.
where would you recommend they start?
Oh my gosh, there are so many great resources out there.
Yeah.
The Enneagram by Don Riso and Russ Hudson.
Huh?
That's a classic.
Class.
Character Neurosis by Claudio Naranjo, another great one.
Okay.
But honestly, even just like a quick internet search
Right.
opens up this whole world of information,
Right.
podcasts, websites,
And many things.
workshops. It's
Yeah.
all out there.
But I think, like, the important thing to remember with the Enneagram is it's not just about understanding others.
Right.
It's about understanding yourself.
It's a tool for self-discovery.
So maybe, like, while you were listening to this,
Yeah.
you had some thoughts about
Yeah.
your own personality,
Absolutely.
your own tendencies.
Yeah.
And I think that's really exciting.
I do too.
So definitely explore the different Enneagram types
Yes.
and see if any resonate with you.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Yeah, what you learn about yourself.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
A little mystery, a little introspection,
Yeah.
and a whole lot of potential for growth and understanding.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration.
We will see you then.